on a dime. And if you are relocating for your job up to the Rocket City of Huntsville, the fastest growing city in the state of Alabama, you need to contact Celeste Hagler of First Class Real Estate South Home Group. She has brokers all over North Alabama to help you get settled with buying a new home in North Alabama. You can contact her at 205-861-5698. Once again, that is Celeste Hagler, 205-861-5698. Contact Celeste Hagler today to live where you love in the state of Alabama, even in the Rocket City of Huntsville. This is the Stingray Show, and coming up on this edition of the Stingray Show, guys, we are going to look ahead to SEC versus SEC basketball that starts on Saturday, as we are going to be joined by Chris Lee of Southeastern 14 Plus. Chris Lee will discuss the bowl action and give you his take on the national championship game. That's all ahead on this edition of the Stingray Show. Let's get things rocking and rolling.
Hi, this is Tim Brando with a reminder. Those of you on Tide 100.9, look out. You're about to feel the buzz of Stingray.
This is Stephen Ray, a.k.a. Stingray, coming to you live from Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
I'm Heath Hopkins. I'm here in DeSoto County, Mississippi, right outside of Memphis, Tennessee. You know, Mark, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you feel that responsibility to pay it forward and give some kid a chance coming up in the ranks, kind of like Tony did for you?
Why do you think I'm talking to Stingray tonight?
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
No, I mean, look, no.
Hey, Stingray, here's the deal. When you get involved with Texas, it's like getting married to a stripper. and let me explain this. It looks good, kind of sexy on the surface. Yeah, but then you get the baggage, you get the drama, you get all that eventually comes with it. And that's what you get with Texas, and that's what the Big 12 learned.
And Heath, any thoughts on our show moving forward?
Hey, to everyone in Tuscaloosa listening here on Tide 100.9. With the Stingray Show, if you don't like it, you better learn to love it, because it's the best show going today, baby. Woo!
Hey guys, have you heard the news? The Bank of Moundville offers personal loans of all sizes, competitive interest rates, secured and unsecured. The Bank of Moundville was established back in 1907. Call them today to get started. Their number is 205-371-2227. Once again, that is the Bank of Moundville, 205-371-2227. They are a member of the FDIC and an equal housing lender. And we want to welcome you into the Thursday evening edition of the Stingray Show. Hope all is well with you guys right here in Tuscaloosa and West Alabama. And Heath, man, let's go on ahead and start off the Stingray Show the best way that we know possible. The national day of today. And today is January the 4th. And the national day of today consists of National Spaghetti Day as well as National Trivia Day. And I've never played any kind of trivia game, but I know that you probably have. Don't you like trivia?
I usually own trivia, man. Yeah, I do enjoy it. I'll say this, just with my schedule and things, I don't have time to sit there at trivia night for a whole night. Well, that's not going to happen anymore. We'll be sitting there having dinner, and I'll be answering all the questions. And right before we get ready to leave, I got other tables asking me, answers to things. But yeah, trivia night's pretty fun, man. I enjoy it. So yeah, if you really want to have a stay-at-home night, get the Trivia Pursuit board out. We'll have fun. I'll make a lot of jokes. I'll humiliate you at the same time. And yeah. What about you, man? You're not big on trivia?
No, not really. So, getting to college basketball, we are inching closer and closer to the SEC slate. And on Saturday, the SEC begins with Mississippi State versus South Carolina, 11 a.m. on CBS. Then you've got Kentucky versus Florida, That is a rivalry game. You've got Georgia facing Missouri. You've got Auburn facing off against Arkansas. You've got Alabama traveling to Memorial Coliseum to take on the Vanderbilt Commodores. You've got Ole Miss taking on Tennessee, which should be an amazing matchup because Ole Miss comes into the SEC slate at 13-0. And finally, the late game, 7:30 on the SEC Network, LSU versus Texas A&M, and that full slate will knock off and kick off the SEC conference schedule for all 14 teams in the SEC. Heath, your thoughts on the opening weekend of SEC conference play in college basketball?
I want everyone to pull out their phone. If you're driving, wait. I can hear the Morgan & Morgan commercial on that one. Radio host tells you to pull out your phone, call Morgan & Morgan. No, but pull out your phone, look up SEC basketball standings, take a screenshot of it, and then here in 3 weeks, a month, it will be completely backwards. Yeah. A lot of teams that are in the bottom will be closer to the top. Some of the teams at the top will be down at the very bottom. I think you're about to see a big jumbled mess in the SEC. So, yeah, go look at those standings right now and look at it 3 weeks from now or beginning of February. Completely different, I promise.
Heath, I will say this, though. I think there is one basketball team in there that probably won't move that much, and that's the Vanderbilt Commodores. Dude, they just don't have talent right now.
Well, man, I don't want to beat up on folks. They don't have talent. I would say they don't have any leadership, and I'm not talking about coaching. I'm talking about athletic director and the university and the school. That's the issue right there. It's a big issue. And look, Vanderbilt's starting to struggle in all sports, including baseball. And there's a reason for it.
And with baseball, dude, that's the only thing right now that they can hang their hat on, as they were the SEC tournament champions last year up in Hoover. But you are seeing, like you said, that is slipping now.
There's a split right there at Vanderbilt and Nashville. There's a split between in the athletic department where Tim Corbin's kind of keeping everybody away from the school and school administration and other teams, and he's trying to do everything to keep that team sheltered in a way. I wouldn't be shocked if this is Tim Corbin's last year there at Vanderbilt. I think he's looking for a way out. It's a nightmare up there in Nashville right now, and you can blame the athletic director. You can blame the president and the leadership. You know, we've heard a lot of things. We don't know if they're true or not, but yikes, it is a nightmare, and it is showing tremendously.
So Heath, at the bottom of the league right now, just above Vanderbilt, you've got 3 teams right now with a record of 8-5 going into the SEC play. You've got Alabama sitting there at 8-5. You've also got LSU sitting there at 8-5. And finally, the other one is the Missouri Tigers. They're at 8-5 as well.
Yeah, I think you're going to see 1 or 2 of those teams really be in the top 3 or 4 in the conference this year. Yeah. But I will say this, Stephen. I think you'll all see all of those teams that are 8-5 will be inconsistent.
Yes.
I think they'll get things rolling. They'll win 5 or 6 in a row, and then they'll just randomly drop a game in conference play to a South Carolina or maybe to a Vanderbilt or whoever. And you're like, whoa, it'll make you scratch your head. I think we're going to be in a topsy-turvy SEC this year when it comes to basketball. I think there's going to be a lot of inconsistencies. I think there's going to be a lot of drama, but I will say that's what's going to make it a lot of fun.
And Heath, let me also say this before we go to break. For the Alabama basketball team, this really has been a disappointing start to the season, especially after the last 2 seasons here at the capstone for Nate Oates in Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, Stephen, when it comes to Alabama and basketball, well, the whole SEC, you know how the NFL right now, it's crazy of how the playoff picture and this team's trying to host and this team's trying to get this seed and this team's trying to make the playoffs and all of that craziness going on that we have every year in the NFL. I think that's what the SEC is going to be like all season long. I think it's going to be mayhem, but it's also going to be fun.
All right, and Heath, hold that thought because we are up against our first break, and when we come back, we are going to touch on the SEC Bowl season and wrap that up. That's on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Stingray Show. We will be right back.
Now, this hour's West Alabama real-time news update from the Tuscaloosa Thread Newsroom.
Police have arrested a Hale County man for a nearly deadly shooting and robbery at a Cottondale apartment complex last month. Investigators with the Tuscaloosa County Sheriff's Department have also arrested a man who allegedly posed as a local law enforcement leader and scammed $30,000 off an unsuspecting victim. Finally, more Alabama football players are announcing whether they will transfer, declare for the NFL draft, or stay in Tuscaloosa next season. For the details on these stories and more, get connected at TuscaloosaThread.com.
Get 24/7 local news coverage and sports updates when you download the free Tuscaloosa Thread app and sign up for twice daily email newsletters.
Are you guys looking for a secondary loan, a small business lending, or a consumer loan? Then let me tell you about the Bank of Moundville, established way back in 1907. The Bank of Moundville, located in downtown Moundville, Alabama, is a full-service bank with lending as a premium right now. You can contact the Bank of Moundville, 205-371-2227. Once again, that is 205-371-2227. They are a member of the FDIC and an equal housing lender. Do you guys have a lake or pond that you own but you don't know your fish population? Then you need to contact Honey Hole Fisheries right here in Tuscaloosa County, because they offer fish population analysis to give you a detailed look at how many fish you have in your pond or lake. They can also help you build the pond or lake of your dreams. Contact Honey Hole Fisheries and Jeff Bagwell at 205-799-0192 and let Honey Hole Fisheries design or create the lake of your dreams. Do you guys dream about owning a home or a condominium down on the beautiful beaches of Alabama, say Orange Beach, Gulf Shores, or maybe even Fairhope? Then let me tell you about First Class Real Estate South Home Group's owner, Celeste Hagler. She has brokers down there in the beautiful beaches of Alabama to help you purchase the home of your dreams and to live where you love in the state of Alabama. You can contact Celeste Hagler at 205-861-5698. Contact Celeste Hagler today to help you live where you love in the state of Alabama. Welcome back inside the Stingray Show. Hope all is well with you guys. And now we are going to get to college football and recap the bowl season for the SEC. And Heath, go on ahead and give me a couple of teams that surprised you in the SEC bowl season and maybe even a couple that disappointed you in this bowl season.
Missouri definitely impressed me. Missouri had the feel-good story all year, and Missouri beating Ohio State. I mean, I know Ohio State was missing their starting quarterback and this and that and blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. But it's still Missouri, and it's still Ohio State, and Missouri did it, man. Yeah. Very happy for Missouri and their fan base, and even happy for the SEC kind of getting behind Missouri this year.
Right.
They were a good feel-good story, and I'll say this. They have been killing it. Portal, NIL, they've been killing it. I think you're going to see another big year out of Missouri next year.
And hey, no, later this year. We're in 2024, man. Come on.
That's right. I agree with that statement.
But I will say this, though. People were ready to run Eli Drinkowitz out of town after 3 straight 6 and 7 seasons up there. And now look at them now. A New Year's Six Bowl win up there for the MIZZOU Tigers.
Yeah, it took them a little time to figure it out.
Yeah.
But, that's the thing, Stephen. Some coaches do need time. Some coaches, you see the writing on the wall well before. I mean, take, for example, Joe Moorhead. He's the head coach at Akron now. But he was the offensive coordinator at Penn State, had a great offense. Sports Illustrated wrote that He was the absolute number one best candidate in America to be the next head coach of a big-time program.
Yeah.
Mississippi State hires him after Dan Mullen, and he won 8 games 2 years in a row, but he had 3 first-round NFL draft picks on defense.
Yeah.
Losing 5 games, was probably the absolute max you could lose with that defense.
Mm-hmm.
And he did it. That's not good. And Mississippi State made a quick change, and everyone was kind of scratching their head like, you're firing a coach that went 8-5 and went undefeated against Ole Miss and took you to New Year's Day bowl games and blah, 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 and yada, yada, yada. And yeah, because it was going the wrong direction. He went to Oregon, dominated Oregon as offensive coordinator, got the head coaching job at Akron. But Joe Moorhead might be your offensive coordinator at Iowa here soon.
Heath, let me just go on ahead and say a big surprise for me this bowl season was Missouri, just like you said. Also, Tennessee turning the page from the Joe Milton era to the Nico era, and that was very, very impressive against a stout Iowa defense.
Yeah, I think Tennessee is going to have a monster year next year. You got Nico, you got Dylan Sampson, you got some wide receivers there. I think Thornton is his last name, a transfer from Oregon, super big time receiver. He got injured last year. Didn't really do much. I think they're going to be stacked.
And Brew McCoy announced yesterday he will be returning to Tennessee.
That's big news, man. Brew McCoy has been good. He has not been phenomenal and great. And everyone thought with him being such a big-time recruit and highly recruited that he was going to be a superstar, especially playing in the air raid offense that Heupel runs.
Yeah.
Maybe he's coming back to show everyone. I think he might even know himself that I've got so much more to show everybody. So I won't be shocked if he goes out and balls out next year. I'm telling you, Tennessee is loaded and stacked. I'm going to go on and call it. They're going to have the best offense in the SEC next year.
All right. And Heath, the 2 disappointments of the bowl season, number 1 has got to be after the way that they ended the season by beating Louisville, and Kentucky just fell flat on their face in the Gator Bowl against Clemson, losing that game in the waning seconds of the game. Kentucky was a major disappointment from start to finish this season up there in Lexington. And the second one, Heath, is Auburn not showing up to take on the Maryland Terrapins. That was a bad end of the season for Auburn and for Kentucky this season.
Stephen, I'll say this. I don't think we should be able to judge coaches anymore on bowl game performances. I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's right. I don't think it's clear. So many guys transferring out or guys holding out for the NFL or whatever it might be, coaches swapping jobs, whatever it might be. There's, you don't have your same coaching staff. You don't have your regular offense and defense. You don't have your regular depth. It's just crazy. It's just crazy of what's going on.
Yeah.
I don't think we should, judge anybody by bowl game performances anymore. Team gets blown out, they get blown out, and so be it. Did they have a bad season because they got blown out in the bowl game? No. I just don't think you can hold those guys accountable anymore. And I can hear fans right now, they're making $5 million a year, $11 million a year, whatever they're making, head coach. He should be held accountable. He should go out there trying to win every game. Well, duh. Your little league coach coaching, coach pitch softball is trying to win every game.
Yeah.
These guys are trying to win every game. They are.
All right.
We don't think we should hold them accountable.
All right. And Heath, let me also finish this segment by saying this before we move on. I know that Alabama fans are still probably getting over the loss to Michigan, and I know that some Alabama fans probably feel like that this was a bad season because they did not make it to the national championship game, because Alabama fans have this stigma of championship or nothing. But guys, lost in that fact is that you did win a championship this year. No, it was not the national championship, but Alabama fans, you guys beat the defending two-time national champions in Atlanta versus Georgia. So guys, even though in the grand scheme of things right now, an SEC conference championship may not sound like much, but dude, after the way that Alabama looked against Texas and the next week of South Florida, winning the SEC championship should be a major accomplishment for this football team. So in my personal opinion, this was not a bad season for the Crimson Tide because, yes, they did win a championship, the SEC championship there in Atlanta.
If you've got a problem with Alabama and how their season went, that's on you. That's not on Coach Saban. That's not on Milroe. It's not on the offensive coordinator. It's not on anybody. It's on you.
Yeah.
You know, to see Bama at the beginning of the year to what they are now, go back and watch that South Florida first half. Just go back and watch it. Watch the whole game if you want to. Go back and watch the first game of the season. Go back and watch any game and then watch the last three games. And if you cannot see a major difference in the offense and defense, mainly on offense, if you cannot see a major difference on offense,
right,
you're an idiot. You're a complete buffoon idiot. I said it. I don't care what you think. I said it. I'll say it to your face. You know, with that, Bama had a really good season. It was not great. They won the SEC West. They won the SEC. They made the college football playoff. They did a lot of things that everybody wants to do. They lost in overtime to the number one team in the country. I mean, if you think this was a bad season, you are a buffoon.
Heath, I will go a step further and say it was a great season because you won a championship, man. Come on.
I'm okay with that. I really am. I mean, you're going to finish in the top five, and no one wants to finish in the top five. I mean, people don't remember, you know, only fans remember the years of championships. You know, only your fans do. You can go anywhere and ask, you know, 10 years from now, you can ask somebody, when did Georgia win the national championship? Yeah, what was that? What years were those? You're not going to remember. You're not. You know, when did Florida State win their championships in Nebraska back in the 90s? Exactly. Name me all the times Ohio State's won the championships here in the past 20 years. Exactly. When did Oklahoma do it with Heupel? Exactly. You know, it is what it is.
So, Heath, on that note, we're going to take another break, and when we come back, we are going to have a guest join us, Chris Lee of Southeastern 14. That's on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Stingray Show. Be back in a flash to talk about college basketball and college football. How would you guys like to try a caramel cookie butter hot chocolate? Hey, you guys ordered the Blitzen so much at Strange Brew Coffee House over the holidays until Strange Brew made the Blitzen a permanent addition to Strange Brew Originals. Hey, it's cold outside, it's wintertime, you probably need a pick-me-up or maybe even something to warm you up. Go by Strange Brew Coffee House on the Strip at the University of Alabama, 1101 University Boulevard, and get you something that will warm your heart and your soul right here on the Strip at the University of Alabama. Hey guys, have you heard the news? The Bank of Moundville offers personal loans of all sizes, competitive interest rates, secured and unsecured. The Bank of Moundville was established back in 1907. Call them today to get started. Their number is 205-371-2227. Once again, that is the Bank of Moundville, 205-371-2227. They are a member of the FDIC and an equal housing lender. Residents of Tuscaloosa, are you guys upsizing, downsizing, looking for college housing, or even relocating for your job right here to Tuscaloosa? If that's the case, then you need to contact Celeste Hagler, owner and operator of First Class Real Estate South Home Group right here in Tuscaloosa. She can help you with the buying, selling, and investment needs throughout the state of Alabama. You can contact Celeste at 205-861-5698. Reach out to Celeste again at 205-861-5698 and schedule a consultation to discuss your real estate goals and to live where you love in the state of Alabama. Residents of Tuscaloosa, are you guys upsizing, downsizing, looking for college housing, or even relocating for your job right here to Tuscaloosa? If that's the case, then you need to contact Celeste Hagler, owner and operator of First Class Real Estate South Home Group right here in Tuscaloosa. She can help you with the buying, selling, and investment needs throughout the state of Alabama. You can contact Celeste at 205-861-5698. Reach out to Celeste again at 205-861-5698 and schedule a consultation to discuss your real estate goals and to live where you love in the state of Alabama. Welcome back inside the Stingray Show. Hope all is well with you guys out there. And now we are about to get to our very, our very special guest this evening, who is none other than Chris Lee from Southeastern 14 to preview a little bit of SEC on SEC basketball as the SEC season starts here very soon on Saturday. Ladies and gentlemen, here is Mr. Chris Lee. Chris, how are you doing? And I should say, Happy New Year, my friend.
Happy New Year to you guys. I am super excited about the next couple of months of SEC sports. You've got, unfortunately, the league is left out of the playoff, but I think you've got a fascinating basketball race ahead. I think baseball, as always, is going to be phenomenal. I mean, that'll be here before we blink. I just really look forward to February, March, April, January, even some. It's just so darn cold. But other than that, we get basketball to entertain us, and there's going to be plenty of that. So I think this is going to be a really fun year ahead, and, of course, the addition of Texas and Oklahoma in the fall.
So, Chris, I do want to go back to the bowl season just for a second. Outside of the New Year's Six and outside of the playoffs, which SEC team surprised you the most in the bowl season, and which one disappointed you the most in this bowl season?
I think there were two. I would go probably in this order in terms of surprise. Ole Miss and Tennessee. Ole Miss is, I don't know if non-competitive is fair to describe Penn State, but certainly Ole Miss had a huge advantage in that. The computers loved Penn State, thought it was a top 5 team. I wondered about that offense, but the way that Ole Miss was able to move the ball and score on Penn State was impressive. Penn State was giving up less than 4 yards of play, which is incredible.
Yeah.
And so I think that was number one. Number two, Tennessee. I thought that was a possibility because Iowa was just so stinking bad on offense. But I thought Tennessee losing some guys to the portal and some starters to the portal defensively might have a chance to level the playing field. It didn't at all. Right. We saw Nico. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name. I thought it was Iamaliva, but it's not. But everybody knows who I'm talking about. I thought he was pretty impressive. The stat line wasn't tremendous, but it was good. And I think if you watch the game, he played big when it mattered. I think that his receivers could have helped him out more with catching some passes and making that passing line, which wasn't bad, look better. So I think those were the two teams that stood out to me as good. I don't know. Well, and Missouri too, of course. How can you forget Missouri?
Right.
Did against Ohio State? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I would have liked to have seen a better performance out of Texas A&M, but that wasn't going to happen. Georgia was the option, did you know? Auburn would be disappointment. I thought Auburn had the table set with Tagovailoa to his brother out. I can't speak this today, but in any case, their quarterback was out, and I thought that left the door open for Auburn. which Auburn did not capitalize, went down 21-0 in the first quarter, and that was that.
Chris, is it safe to say that Nico is the new Tua? We're just going to call him Nico, just like we call him Tua, because we didn't want to pronounce his last name. I think SEC fans everywhere, will be calling him. And I'll say this, all the greats, don't we call them by their first name, to the exception of maybe Tim Tebow, but we talked about Cam. We talked about Bo. We talked about Herschel. All the greats, we call them by their first name. So Nico, you might get a pass on that just because of your last name, just like Tua did.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. It's a lot bigger than Tua was, but that's a good point. I think we're going to hear a lot of Nico in the near future.
I do want to pick up your brain on this, Chris. I always thought teams that, we'll take Auburn for the example here, teams that finished strong, and they had a great showing in the Iron Bowl. Of course, that crazy play happened. But if they win the bowl game, there's a lot of media hype around them. There's a lot of incentive for them to go into off-season workouts. There's, a buzz around the program. There's energy building. They missed those two opportunities of winning the Iron Bowl, though they had a great showing, and kind of fell short in the bowl game. Now look at Ole Miss. Ole Miss kind of finished the season strong. Ole Miss had a big win over Penn State. Now that's growing and building. I think you're going to hear a lot of noise out of Oxford this year and a lot of preseason hype. We've seen this train before, and it always wrecks. But this year might actually be different in Oxford. They are killing it in the transfer portal. Ole Miss fans are walking around bragging like, we basically stole Tennessee's defense. They're in Oxford now. Thanks, transfer portal. You're starting to hear all kinds of buzz around Ole Miss already. Is it one of those things that you see that the bowl game can springboard you into some preseason hype?
Not as much as it used to because of the obvious reasons, the portal and all those things. But for some, it applies. And Ole Miss is the one that I think I even tweeted this out. I think it felt like when you were watching Ole Miss with what it was putting on display. And keep in mind, I don't think that Ole Miss and Penn State had a lot of bowl opt-outs. So that one, to borrow a phrase unintentionally, meant a little bit more because a lot of the guys that you saw playing in that game, you would think are going to be wearing the same uniforms the next year. So, yeah, I think in that case it did. They kept showing the transfer portal graphic of all the guys that Ole Miss had coming in, particularly on defense, as you pointed out. Another one that I would put in that category is Missouri, because Missouri has been killing it in NIL and the portal also. Now, maybe not in the public way that Ole Miss has. But, yeah, I think that bowl games generally mean less than ever. But I think there were some teams, Missouri, Tennessee, two that come to mind that really it feels like it was a little bit more of a harbinger of things to come with what those teams have been doing in terms of rebuilding and hitting the portal.
Mm-hmm. So, Chris, I do want to ask you before we go to break briefly your thoughts on Brian Kelly's news yesterday of him completely getting rid of the entire defensive staff down there at LSU, including defensive coordinator Matt House. Your thoughts on that and who you think they should go after?
Well, and look, he lost his offensive coordinator the week before when Mike Denbach went back to Notre Dame. So, yeah, look, LSU had problems in coverage all year, tried to rebuild through the portal. I don't know if didn't find the right guys or coaching. Brian Kelly evidently found enough blame in coaching that he siphoned the staff off. LSU should have been better defensively than it was. I mean, you watched the bowl game against Wisconsin. I thought LSU would win that in a runaway. Wisconsin's offense wasn't the most fearsome thing out there, but was pretty competitive against that defense. I mean, there was enough talent there with Perkins and Mason Smith and those guys. And when you're at LSU, you've always got athletes. I thought that unit underachieved. Again, I don't know how much to blame on talent or coaching, but certainly LSU chose to blame some of it on coaching, and you'll see changes accordingly.
Yes.
I'm going to piggyback on that very quickly. Keep an eye on the name Zach Arnett. Brian Kelly tried to hire Zach Arnett when he first got to LSU. He has offered him jobs since he's been at LSU. Now Zach Arnett doesn't have a job. I wouldn't be shocked if Zach Arnett's there by sundown.
Since 1999, residents of Tuscaloosa has depended on this butcher shop and grocery store. I'm talking about South's Finest Meats. With their specialty meats and fresh to frozen bulk vegetables, you can prepare delicious home-cooked meals all week long. At South's Finest Meats, customer service is their number one priority, and when you shop with them, you can expect to be treated like an MVP. Go by and check out South's Finest Meats at 3201 10th Avenue right there in Tuscaloosa. South's Finest Meats, the official sponsor of the Stingray Show. So guys, on that note, we're going to take another break, and when we come back, we are going to dive into the realm of college basketball. That's on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Stingray Show. We will be right back.
Weekday mornings at 6 a.m. The Martin Houston Show.
Join the Martin Houston Show powered by Max Sports for a free-for-all flashback Friday as we continue to lick our wounds from the Alabama-Michigan game. We also turn our attention toward basketball as Alabama travels up to play Vanderbilt in the always tough home court advantage Vanderbilt Commodores. We'll be talking about those stories as well as others. The phone lines will be open at 205-342-9904. That's the Alabama One hotline. And you can listen to us on Tide 100.9, 1230 AM WTBC, and the Martin Houston Radio Network on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Catch the Martin Houston Show from 6 to 7 weekday mornings on Tide 100.9.
Since 1999, residents of Tuscaloosa has depended on this butcher shop and grocery store. I'm talking about South's Finest Meats. With their specialty meats and fresh to frozen bulk vegetables, you can prepare delicious home-cooked meals all week long. At South's Finest Meats, customer service is their number one priority, and when you shop with them, you can expect to be treated like an MVP. Go by and check out South's Finest Meats at 3201 10th Avenue right there in Tuscaloosa. South's Finest Meats, the official sponsor of the Stingray Show. Your life can change on a dime, and if you are relocating for your job up to the Rocket City of Huntsville, the fastest growing city in the state of Alabama, you need to contact Celeste Hagler of First Class Real Estate South Home Group. She has brokers all over North Alabama to help you get settled with buying a new home in North Alabama. You can contact her at 205-861-5698. Once again, that is Celeste Hagler, 205-861-5698. Contact Celeste Hagler today to live where you love in the state of Alabama, even in the Rocket City of Huntsville. How would you guys like to try a caramel cookie butter hot chocolate? Hey, you guys ordered the Blitzen so much at Strange Brew Coffee House over the holidays until Strange Brew made the Blitzen a permanent addition to Strange Brew Originals. Hey, it's cold outside, it's wintertime, you probably need a pick-me-up or maybe even something to warm you up. Go by Strange Brew Coffee House on the Strip at the University of Alabama, 1101 University Boulevard, and get you something that will warm your heart and your soul right here on the Strip at the University of Alabama.
Hey, Jen,
Welcome back inside of our final segment right here on the Stingray Show, and now we are going to transition into SEC basketball because SEC on SEC starts very soon this Saturday, and Alabama starts off SEC play with Vanderbilt. Chris, briefly, can you break down that matchup of Alabama and Vanderbilt?
Yeah, Alabama scores like the 1980s Lakers. No, the defense has been another story, but that offense is the best in college basketball right now. The computers love Alabama. It's pretty much a consensus top 5 team or close to it in most of the major computers. I know the record's not great, but look at the schedule and who Alabama's lost to. Yeah. Vanderbilt cannot defend at all. Van Allen Lubin The closest thing they have to a center has been out with the nagging groin injury. They expect him back. I don't think it's going to matter. I think Alabama's going to come into Nashville and Alabama scored 100 points or more 5 times and 98 and 99 other times. I think Alabama will probably break triple digits on the scoreboard and walk out of Nashville with a fairly easy win.
Chris, going into the SEC season that starts, like I said, on Saturday, which team in the SEC, top to bottom, has surprised you the most in the preseason basketball?
I think it's, in a pleasant way, it's probably South Carolina. This was a team that had a lot of experience until Keon Minifield got eligible for Arkansas. I did a study of the teams last year and which guys on a roster played the most minutes at the Division I level last year. I think until Arkansas added Minifield, South Carolina was number 1 on the list. Now, I didn't know if the firepower would be good enough. I still don't know that the bottom half of the roster is good enough in terms of depth. But Carolina having 1 loss at this point, and the schedule hasn't been great, but this is a program that's been down for a bit. I think that start has been impressive as Lamont Paris puts his stamp on that team in year 2. I think Florida, I'm not going to say has been a surprise, but maybe under talked about. Unpleasant surprises. I expected Missouri to be a little bit better. Pleasant surprises. Obviously, Ole Miss. Again, the schedule hasn't been great. I think the biggest surprise, though, has probably been an unpleasant one. I've been shocked that Arkansas has not been better than it's been. Now, Eric Musselman has done this before. Seems like it takes till mid to late January for his teams to get rolling, but I expected more than this with the talent and experience. Keon Minifield did return 3 games ago and has progressively gotten a lot better, dropped 32 in his last game. Maybe that's a sign of things to come, but I think in some of the positive and the negative, I think I've been most surprised that Arkansas hasn't been better.
This is crazy. We have had 2 questions about SEC basketball, and the name Kentucky has not surfaced yet. This is where we are now. Kentucky doesn't run this league anymore.
No.
I know that's been a big joke up there in Lexington, but is Kentucky no longer a basketball school?
Well, look, let's pump the brakes on that a little bit because I think Kentucky, I think you've got teams that I think could win the league. I think you're looking at Kentucky. I think you're looking at Auburn. I would have said Arkansas, I need to see more. Alabama could win it. Tennessee could win it. Maybe even Texas A&M, although I'm not as confident. That was my preseason pick. I'm not sure. I would probably put A&M 5th behind those other 4. But I think Kentucky is the team. I've had Tennessee number 1 in my power rankings for a while. I got outvoted by my partners this week, and Kentucky was at the top of our power poll. But here's the thing. I think if all the teams in this league play at or close to their ceiling, I think Kentucky is the best team at the end of everything if everybody gets to that. I just think the talent is there with Reed Shepherd, with those freshmen. Remember, Kentucky wasn't very healthy in the paint much of the year. Those kids will get better. I think Kentucky still, even though it's muddy at the top and there's 4 or 5 teams that could win it, I still think that's the team, if it plays up to its ceiling, that would come out ahead.
All right, Chris, I'm going to throw some things at you. Current rankings in the SEC. And of course, it's strictly by record as we get ready to start SEC play. But here's the top half, and I want you to tell me who you think the pretenders are. 13-0 Ole Miss, 12-1 South Carolina, 11-2 Auburn, 11-2 Mississippi State, 10-2 Kentucky, 10-3 Florida, and 10-3 Tennessee. Who's the pretenders in there?
I think the biggest pretender would be South Carolina. I'm not saying South Carolina. Look, again, I think Lamont Paris has done a terrific job. I'm not sure that they've got enough depth. And the scoring punch has been there, but it's also been against a weaker schedule. That to me, if you said South Carolina is either in the NCAA or NIT or not at all, I'd probably pick one of the latter 2 options. I think they'll probably get to the NIT. I'm just not sure with as rough and tumble as the league is they get there. I don't know that there's another pretender in that group. Mississippi State's the one that I wonder about, but Tulu Smith came back. And I say that team's been up and down. The loss to Southern, the loss to Georgia Tech, just when that team really had it rolling, kind of leaves you scratching your head. But look, that's been the way in college basketball this year.
Southern.
I mean, Florida Atlantic goes to and wins at Arizona and then loses to Florida Gulf Coast the next week. A lot of teams have got one or two of those in there. Toulouse Smith came back, gave them 16-9 the other night. I think that changes the dynamic of that roster. I think those teams are all pretty good teams, but if you said who in that group is going to fall out, I think it's South Carolina.
So, Chris, I know that you cover Southeastern 14 and you cover the SEC, but I have to ask you in parting, Monday night, Michigan versus Washington, and later this year, that will be a conference game for the Big Ten. Chris, are you going with J.J. McCarthy and Blake Corum, or are you going with Michael Penix Jr., Dylan Johnson, and Washington? Who do you have winning Monday night, the national championship, Michigan versus Washington?
Look, the computers say that Michigan's probably, 7 to 10 points better than Washington. Washington's been the team Washington, Missouri are probably the two teams nationally that were undervalued compared to the results that they got by the computers. Look, the computers thought Oregon was a touchdown better than Washington. Washington beat them both times. The computers have been saying for a while that Michigan was the best team in the country. And, I thought looked like the better team than Alabama. That said, what gave Alabama problems against Michigan was failure to protect Jalen Milroe, which has been its Achilles heel, and even failure to block on a running play. That second and goal play, where they tackled McClellan for a loss of 8, proved fatal to that in-game drive. There's a point in this. The point is that Washington had, according to a lot of people, the best offensive line in the league. In college football, Michael Penix Jr. was just a surgeon in that semifinal game against Texas. At every big game that I saw him playing all year, he was tremendous. The evidence points towards Michigan if you look at the computers. I watched both those teams play. I think that Washington can neutralize a lot of the pressure that Michigan was able to put on Alabama. And I think the best playmaker on that field Monday night is going to be Michael Penix Jr. And that's why I'll take Washington in an upset.
That's awesome. All right. And Chris, going back to college basketball briefly for the SEC, right now, before we get into conference play, going ahead and tell our listeners how many teams you think make the NCAA tournament out of the SEC, please.
I think it's 7 to 9. Okay. Just quickly. I'll tell you who I think is there and who I think. Okay, I think Mississippi State's going to be there. I think South Carolina is going to be probably NIT. Kentucky will be there. I think Florida will be there. That's 3. Georgia, Missouri will not be. Okay. Auburn will be there. That's 4. Arkansas might. That would be 5. Alabama will be there. That's 5 or 6, depending on what you do with Arkansas. Tennessee will be there. Ole Miss, I think, has got a good shot. I would probably put Ole Miss in. I think A&M will get in the LSU once. So that's 8 plus maybe Arkansas, which has got a hole to climb out of. I just, when you get to that point, you got 14 teams and there's only so many wins to go around. But I would probably put that number at 8 and say either probably Ole Miss or Arkansas doesn't get there.
Okay. So Chris, look, man, enjoy the SEC versus SEC action in college basketball this weekend, and we will catch up with you to preview more games next week, my friend.
Thanks, guys. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, my friend.
Happy New Year.
So, Heath, that is going to wrap up this edition of the Stingray Show. We hope that you guys have thoroughly enjoyed it right there with Chris Lee. When we come back tomorrow, we are going to be joined by another basketball guru, Mr. Doug Gottlieb, will join us on the Friday evening edition of the Stingray Show. And Heath, let's go ahead and do it together, my friend.
We are out.
See you guys tomorrow night right back here on the Stingray Show with the national sports host, Doug Gottlieb. Doug is